Welcome back to the Hip Hop Scholar Podcast, where beats meet bibliography, where sound becomes scholarship, and where culture is documented in real time. Today's episode is one that sits at the very heart of what this platform represents. I am truly honored to welcome Dr. A.D. Carson, Associate Professor of Hip Hop in the Department of Music at the University of Virginia and Shannon Center for Advanced Studies Fellow. Dr. Carson is not simply a scholar who studies hip hop. He is one of the scholars who helped make hip hop scholarship visible and undeniable inside the academy. Long before universities began openly recognizing hip hop as a field of study, Dr. Carson was doing the work. He challenged the idea of what a dissertation could be and what scholarship could sound like. His groundbreaking doctoral project, Owning My Masters, The Rhetorics of Rhymes and Revolutions, was presented as a rap album, not as a supplement, not even as an extra. The album was the research. The music was the argument, and the bars carried theory. The rhymes carried history. That kind of work does not push boundaries, it redraws them. Dr. Carson's scholarship reminds us that hip-hop is a site of knowledge production. Hip-hop is intellectual labor, memory, as well as rhetorical practice. Hip-hop is lived experience translated into language and rhythm. And what makes his work especially powerful is that it refuses the separation between artist and academic. Dr. Carson moves between performance stages and classrooms with the same purpose. His music and his research speak to questions of race, place, justice, education, as well as belonging. He asks us to think seriously about whose voices get archived and whose knowledge gets recognized. For those of us who believe hip-hop belongs in the university, Dr. Carson represents a blueprint. He represents possibility, and he represents the intellectual seriousness of the culture that we all love. As I, Melanie, the hip-hop scholar, this conversation means something deeper for me, because this platform exists for moments exactly like this. Conversations where hip-hop is not treated as background noise, but as text, as theory, as the discourse, even as scholarship. This is a conversation about hip-hop as intellectual tradition, about turning lived experience into research. This is a conversation about what it means to claim space for hip-hop inside institutions that were never originally built for us. Dr. Carson's work asks a powerful question. What happens when the people who created the culture also become the ones who interpret it, teach it, and archive it? That question lives at the center of this episode because hip-hop is not just something we listen to. Hip-hop is something that we study. We build knowledge through it, and it is something that we carry forward. And today we are sitting down with one of the greats who helped make that future possible. This is the Hip Hop Scholar Podcast, and I'm honored to welcome again Dr. A.D. Carson. Okay. Got to give you your flowers, sir. How are you today, Dr. Carson?
I could complain, but would nobody listen? So I'm good. I am really happy to be here, humbled, honored, and looking forward to the conversation that we are going to have. And just want to thank you also for making space to continue, the necessary work to make sure that folks, get it right, or get left.
Absolutely. Get it right, get left, and making certain that hip hop is the domain. It's not background noise. It's not just entertainment. My goal is to make hip hop in that same canon as classical music, where there's no reason for it not to be revered and studied like we do Beethoven and Tchaikovsky and all of those greats. We can do the same with Kool Moe Dee, DJ Kool Herc, with Queen Latifah. All of that can definitely be done, and it is because of scholars like yourself that are paving the way actively. Thanking you for, making this trail of excellence that wasn't there in the first place. So thank you for that, and definitely let's get into this conversation, sir, for sure.
Word. All right, let's do it.
Okay, so my first question, we got to start from the very beginning. When did you fall in love with hip hop? Take us down memory lane.
So when I just finished this book, or just released the book. The book been finished for a minute, called Being Dope. Um, Hip hop in theory through mixtape memoir. And one of the things that I say about the question that poses hip hop as like a romantic partner, which I don't think that's what you asked, but I'm saying this for no, it's all good. Yeah. So the question that poses hip hop as a romantic partner, I think like has some unintentional consequences. I think that we've seen, um, because uh, it presumes a like masculine feminine relationship, like a male female relationship, like a but also like a possessive relationship, one that is like, sort of owner and object. And I think that if we were to examine that, especially like around the time when Common Song came out, and how hip hop in that song is kind of lifeless and has no agency, and it's all these things that stuff is being done to her, that like there are two different things that might happen. One is that like women might get completely erased from the conversation, might just get completely erased and then have no agency or like no involvement, unless they are like talking about sexuality in ways that are outside of the purview of like what the mainstream conversation might be. Which is, this is not me talking about like sexual orientation. This is me talking about the real harm that it might do to the history of women participating in hip hop as agents, as artists, as like as contributing members. But then the other thing that that I think happens is that it limits our understanding of how hip hop comes into our lives. And so if I were to answer the question honestly, and I would say that like that asking when I fell in love with hip hop is like asking when I realized I love my mom, or when I realized I love my grandma, or when I realized that my ancestors loved me. That my love for hip hop was ordained. That it existed before my parents met each other. That it existed when my grandma was learning about Paul Laurence Dunbar. Like I'm saying that it's a thing. It's not somebody that I met in a bar, and then I got a drink, and then somebody was like, that's who sent it. No. Like this is a thing that I inherited, right? Like so hip hop. I mean, it's like asking like, when did you know it was your blood that was in your veins? And I'm saying like that's before a knowledge of blood even being in my veins, it was already there. And so, like when I hear Gwendolyn Brooks speaking, and I'm like, she sounds like my grandma. I love that thing that she's doing. That was the thing that we might be calling hip hop right now. I'm saying my love relationship with hip hop happened before hip hop even had a name. And I think that it's really important for us to say that, because hip hop is my inheritance. It's not my romantic relationship. I'm saying hip hop is a thing that my ancestors created for me to have here now. And if folks don't understand that, they think that like I might get mad at hip hop and then hip hop could walk out of my life, or I could walk out of its life. That ain't possible. It would be the same as me like bleeding myself, or like taking all my blood out and then somehow sustaining life. That can't happen. And so yeah, it's so my love relationship with hip hop is not romantic at all. Like it's familial. And it is occasioned, it is ancestral. It is ongoing, and it will never die.
Come on now with that answer. Come on now. Man, let's go ahead. Let's talk, because in essence, in this platform, when I do ask the questions, I receive beautiful answers from every one of my guests.
Mm-hmm.
A majority of my guests shared that it was at a very young age.
Yeah.
Even before they even knew who they were, hip hop was a part of them. They'll say ages as young as 3 years old, 4 years old. And really, the remembrance is that I can't remember life without there being hip hop.
Yep.
And then I also have guests that talk about getting into hip hop much later in life, being introduced to it, and then having a hold on them later on in life and growing into that. And so it becomes this insight. Like I'm reading the Celestine prophecy right now. And so it's like this insight that is taking a hold, that is unraveling what was always there. And like you're saying, my father is the youngest of 14, the sharecroppers. And I always know that being a first generation college graduate and being in the domain of academia that I am in, I am the answers to my ancestors' prayers because of the rhythms and the cadence and the rhymes that they had to say that kept them alive in the plantations, going through the life of seeing my great grandfather being lynched, being able to use these hymns as well as these rhythms and these this poetry and making it the ancestral pride of continuing on this legacy, right? And that is what we are providing this legacy and being unafraid, continuing that unafraidness to share that out, especially in the domain of hip hop. So you gave a riveting answer. Like that really woke me up there, Dr. Carson, because that is the essence of what hip hop is, and absolutely my goal when it comes to bringing hip hop into literacy, right? I am an English professor. And so in the literacy part, the identity, the structure of a narrative, and even the conduction of research, hip hop has the layers and the support and scholarship to help to produce that, not just something that is entertaining and you can twerk to it. It is so much more faceted than that. And you're talking to the choir here, preacher. So keep on with it. Keep on with it. I'm right there with you.
No, yeah, and it's important, and I think that there are also these other. I mean, it's important to lay out the terrain for the uninitiated, and even sometimes for the folks who have been initiated, but like their initiation might have been different. And so, like there are other ways, of answering the question to say like when did you know that you could rap good, or when did you realize that you wanted to work on that skill as opposed to other skills? And you have I remember my pops rapping, and he was like, he had the old school cadence, and all of that. Like I said, I remember my grandma, but I also remember, me and my siblings. I had 5 brothers and 2 sisters. Like battling one another. I used to come home from I used to come home from school and I would want to watch Jeopardy, and my closest brother, who's like a year younger than I am, he would want to watch Rap City. And so whoever got home first got the remote control. Mm-hmm. And then eventually, we would have this thing where he'd be like, well, at least on the commercials, turn it to Rap City. And so I can remember the videos that held me and made me think, I think I can do that actually. And so it's there are markers, like with my age that to let me know when I thought I could do it. Or there are markers, like being in 4th grade and asking my teacher if I could make my English assignment rhyme instead of doing it as a paragraph, or if I could make my paragraph rhyme. And I remember that teacher turning around and saying, not only can you do that, she gave me poetry books. I'm saying this woman literally gave me poetry in response to me doing my work poetically. And so it was fostered early on. And so when I pick it up, it's a thing. It's certainly a thing that's always been there. It's certainly a thing that was provided for me to be able to step into. But mm-hmm. There was a time period where I deliberately stepped into it, and then there were the moments, like say later on in undergrad, when I'm doing my work in the English department, doing my work in the writing department, or doing my work in education, teacher education, and at the same time I'm listening to all these rap records and I'm having to write lesson plans, and then I'm like, well, I'm filtering everything through this hip hop knowledge that I've gotten since me and my brother was fighting over the TV. And so when I hear Sophocles talking about the Oedipus Rex story, and the Jay-Z album comes out and Meet the Parents is there, then I'm like, I wonder how many folks realize that Jay-Z's song has all of this overlap with what Sophocles is doing there. Like that this is a thing that we might do. So, it was an opportune moment because at that point in time, I'm responsible for teaching Oedipus Rex to students, and they might not care about what Sophocles has to say, but I'm like, have y'all heard that new Jay-Z album? And they have, and I'm like, oh, well, he might have something to say about what we got going on here. And so then it makes me a teacher whose intellectual practice before I came into that room provides him with something that none of the other teachers seem to have access to. All of the students in the room seem to have access to, and all I got to do is like bring those two things, and sit them next to each other, and then that conversation blooms. And so there were times where it felt like I was doing a secret or a covert thing, like this clandestine operation where I'm trying to smuggle this contraband information into this proper place. And then as I start thinking more about that, as I start actually teaching, then I'm like, these things don't really need to be separate. Why must I Hannah Montana my life and pretend that like I'm this one person whenever I'm on stages at night, and I'm this other person when I'm in front of a class during the day, and because the real world doesn't really accept that or has issues with that, like they exceptionalize it, and then they might demonize it or vilify it, or even in some cases criminalize it. Then I'm like, well, let me go back to school and see if these arguments that I've been making, on this smaller stage inside of the classroom, can actually take a bigger stage as the pedagogical basis for a master's degree or for a PhD. So by the time I get to the PhD program, I'm very well equipped with the knowledge that these places have been hostile to the thing that I want to bring into them. Now, they might call it novel, and they might say, like, kudos to you, but almost every time that I bring it there, what they want me to do is say, well, Sophocles and Jay-Z are doing the same thing, or Shakespeare and Tupac are doing the same thing, or MC Lyte is doing the same thing as Harriet Beecher Stowe. And I'm like, nah. I mean, like, they relate. Undoubtedly they relate. But if we're only using hip hop as the tool to see what you deem proper literature clearly, then we're missing what hip hop is doing on its own.
Right.
Without having to be compared to this like literary great thing, or what I mean, like similes and metaphors work differently in rap than the way Robert Frost or Rudyard Kipling used them. I mean, I'm not saying that it's extra literary. I'm just saying that they function differently, so we're missing a whole lot when we try to smuggle hip-hop into the classroom by calling it poetry. It has poetics. It has poetics, but to call it poetry is dishonest, and we've been doing this dishonest thing for a really long time. What are hip-hop's own poetics? Like, what is it doing in teaching me how to see the world or how to make sense of the information that I process? And since I've been writing albums this entire time, and I've been studying in these places this entire time, I'm uniquely suited. I'm not the only one, but I'm uniquely suited, uniquely poised to be able to ask these questions in this place at this time and say, the arguments that precede me, the scholars who precede me, and this is Imani Perry, this is Trisha Rose. This is Gwendolyn Pugh. This is Kara Gant. This is, like in some ways, Cornel West. This is somebody like Mad Skills. Like all of those people have made it possible for me to be here and say, I don't need to give you this prelude for you to be able to understand why this is theory and praxis. They've already did that. They carried the burden all the way up to this point. So that's the lit review. Right? Like that's what precedes the argument. The thing that I have to say, it's not even really about rap so much as it's literally through rap, but form functions to make meaning for people. And so there are lots of things that I understand better because it was delivered to me in a rap, or that I understand differently because it was delivered to me in a rap. So we know that. We know that sonnets, because they're sonnets, communicate a thing. We know that haiku, because it's haiku, communicates a thing. We know that a short story or flash fiction, because it is in that form, communicates a thing. Rap communicates a set of things, or it can be the container to at least acknowledge that that set of things that we are thinking about is out there.
Right.
And if we work with that, then the potential to like revolutionize a classroom, it's infinite.
Man, snaps to everything you just said, man, because in essence, when you began with this answer, you talked about how when you were a young person in fourth grade, it was fostered, but for many of us, myself included, it was not fostered. It was absolutely not. You cannot do that. That is not considered writing. And so this smuggling or, having to fake it in this academia and then having to be who you really are in another essence is what people have had to navigate, even when you do have those pillars that have promoted the use of hip hop in literacy. Even I've been an educator for 23 years, but even when I was in K-12, I would have the principals to question my methodology of being able to use the rap to teach the literacy parts, to use Bodak Yellow to teach Greek and Latin roots. And the students would not only learn it, they would internalize it. It would actually build pride for them to be able to see themselves in this testing that they needed for them to actually do. But it was always questioned. It was always a negative to bring in exactly who I am and what the culture really is into education, when it is exactly what you're saying, is that why are they apart? Why should this be two separate things? And I love the analogy you use with Hannah Montana. And I feel to add to that, it's more like, because we push through it, this Clark Kent Superman, where this ideal of being modest and being meek in a situation where, okay, I'll sit quietly and do what you need for me to do. But once I take on my superpower of using hip hop, of using the rap, of using this bravado to manifest exactly what I'm thinking and exactly what's going on in my world that disagrees with this dominant narrative, then I become Superman, and then there's nothing you can do or say about it. But it's been such a journey, I know, for myself and even for others, when it comes to that respect piece of what hip hop truly is, and having that scholarship, not just as the addendum and saying, oh, it's poetry, oh, it's considered creative writing. And it's more than that. It can stand alone. Being able to stand alone and look at those attributes of what it gives and the frequency of what it provides in really many domains. I say that hip hop is this molecular structure. I had an interview with Dr. Lanisha Patterson, who is a scientist that is studying pancreatic cancer. And her surname is Nene, the hip hop scientist, because hip hop is exactly who she is. It is exactly what she does to be able to save lives in a science lab. Speaking to attorneys, and how the use of knowing that they have this, this dynamism of being who they are and unapologetic when in a courtroom. There are many people, not just artists who make the music, but people who use the music to study, to be lawyers, to be these comedians, to be these educators, because it's not something that is absolutely separate. And it I'm not sure why, but to damn that, where we have to unlearn that you have to separate this, that this is something additional. Being able to rap or being able to do something is something that is extra, and it's not. This is something that should be able to stand on its own, be admired on its own, be studied, have scholarly lit, have, all the intricacies of what needs to be based in academia. And that's what hip hop is, and continuing that lineage, right? It not just starting from scratch and trying to build something, but continuing that lineage and having that standard in all subjects and domains, and just, making certain to have that respect. Have the respect, be able to see myself, be able to be seen by others. But I just know that, a lot of our experiences have been negative because of the love for hip hop. And that's what, upsets me the most, for educators, for, just people in general, where, it's not just a hobby. Hip hop saves lives. Being able to create, these domains in which you can express yourself. One of the articles that I've read talks about how around the world, Senegalese refugees, whenever they make it to Australia and they have their domicile, the very first thing they do when they create their homes is not the bedroom, not the living room, but it's a studio. They create the studio so that they can put together their music to showcase and express themselves in a way that helps to promote them to be able to create the living room and put the family together after whatever debilitating thing has occurred to put them where they are, and that being recognized and seen and said and shared and respected in every domain. So I'm right there with you with that. And do you find also that I saw in the faculty spotlight, you had a lot of diverse students, right, that you get to speak with and get to speak to. How is that, in a layman's terms, how does that go, right? When you have diversity, when you have students that may or may not look like you and they come in for the culture, how does that go as far as with the students, even with visiting professors, how do you diversify hip hop so that they can understand it, especially if they haven't lived it as we have?
Yeah, well, I appreciate that question. And this is one of the things that, that has to be addressed every semester, I think. And the ways that I don't know for sure if I write about it in the book this way, but I do believe that, like, an analogy is, the analogy is like, well, what happens when folks come over to your house? Like how do you teach them that they don't come into the house and not at least offer to take off their shoes, or at least speak to everybody that's in the room, or if there's music playing, like, you don't get to come in the house and then be like, where's the aux cord, or cut off the Bluetooth and then, like, start just like without asking nobody, just playing your music because what's playing back there is old, or you don't like it, or because it's not authentic, or it's not real. Mm-hmm. And so I treat hip hop like my house. I've invited you over as a guest. And really what I'm trying to go through is, like, how you might come into folks' house and be someone who is invited, who's absolutely invited, but you are not entitled to be here. Like, we were generous to let you in. And some folks took the fact that they could see inside the house, maybe they had good memories, maybe it was photographic, and then they went and, like, reproduced the living room, and then, like, on a mass scale, and then they're like, oh no, like, hip hop ain't AD's house. Hip hop is this house that we made. It's Spotify, right? Like, it's Rap Caviar saying, like, hip hop is a competitive sport, or saying that there are no, like, there are no new leaders. Well, here's the thing, Spotify. That's weird for you to believe that you have the power to say that. I'm not saying that I even disagree with you. What I'm saying is that you have built this facsimile of my house and then put something on and tried to make everybody believe that what you're playing over there and where y'all sitting is actually here. Y'all ain't here. Like, and you ain't gonna build a set, like to show it on TV and make anybody who really knows that that's what the house looks like. I think that we're more sophisticated than that. We understand that. But the students don't. And so when they come into the classroom and it's not an artificial set, and I ask them, hey, would y'all mind taking off y'all shoes? Then they're like, well, before I came here, I never had to take off my shoes. And I'm like, yeah, I ain't even asked about where you been before you got here. I asked about you being here, like if you could take off your shoes. That's all. And that's weird that that's like where I'm getting the pushback. It's weird that the pushback is respect my elders. It's weird that because you might not revere them as elders, right? Like you might not believe that Kool Herc or KRS-One or Queen Latifah deserves your respect because, I don't know, you wasn't born whenever their music was out, as if that's a qualifier, or you just don't believe that their contributions are great enough. It wasn't the thing that brought you to hip hop. You fell in love with hip hop when Kid Cudi came out or something. I don't know, like when Chief Keef was your pathway, and that's all cool. But you ain't gonna disrespect my elders. Imagine you coming into my house, you seeing my grandma on the wall, you seeing my auntie on the wall, and you like, fam, that's my people you talking about. And while I'm on this, don't come into my house and see Chief Keef on the wall and be like, because that's my cousin, that's my nephew, right? Like were you coming in here insulting my family? And you might say, hey, when your cousin Keith be saying, that's that shit I don't like, I don't really understand it. Or I don't really get it. Like you can say that and that makes sense. Like, I don't get it, or I think your cousin don't like me that much. Or I think your cousin, like whatever, or, like he must have came up, or I wonder what it was like. But for you to come in like trying to to project the bibliography of my cousin whose picture you see on the wall and you heard some songs of his, you ain't got no questions. You are uncurious. You are unserious. And you think that you about to take his picture off the wall and put up whose ever picture you want to. That's wild. That's wild to me. Respect my house. Respect my house. That's how that works. And that also means that that when the students come in, there is, I kind of have to say, y'all might have been a whole lot of places. And it's forgivable that you ain't got no decorum and you ain't got no manners. It's forgivable. You born in the United States of America, and this place absolutely will teach the manners out of you. It will socialize manners out of you. But you ain't gonna get away with doing that. Like when that happens, we gotta stop and have a moment and say, we don't do that in this house. That's not what we do over here. And I don't know where you got that from. And then again, you be like, but such and such said. And I'm like, oh yeah, like such and such ain't part of the family. Such and such took the family secret and tried to sell it. Made it into a product, made it into a TV show, made it into a ringtone. So that's cool that that's what you got. But that's not here. That's not over here. Like, so the thing that I'm thinking about is local. I'm saying it is as local as the house, right? So again, imagine coming over to my house, coming over to my grandma's house, coming over to my mom's house, and she playing a record. And you get there, like I'm saying, everybody around is enjoying the record, or maybe everybody around is just chilling. We playing cards, and then all of a sudden the music stops. And then you put on some record that you brought in your jacket, and you don't even live here. You was invited by somebody. We don't even know who invited you, but now that you here, you're like, oh no, I get to control the music. I get to control the playlist. Damn, you better go on somewhere. And you would be lucky if we respectfully ask you to leave. So yes, that's the way that it goes in the classroom, and that has to be instructive because, like, I believe that one of the things that has happened with hip hop scholarship is that folks have absolutely no manners. Is that folks have absolutely no, like, it's like I don't know who you've been in community with or who your family is, but I would never, in my family, or my family would never And it's weird that y'all think that this is what it is. Like you watch Brown Sugar and thought that Brown Sugar was like the actual family reunion. It wasn't. It was not. That wasn't what goes on. Like really, that was a film that was made for people to make money off of it, or for people to have a glimpse into a thing. But please don't get that twisted as reality. That film is not a documentary.
Right. Right. Word to all of that.
Yeah.
Because come on with it.
Yeah. And so what I want to say is that like another one of the analogies, and so I think about this like about like drugs, like thinking about the United States, or thinking about myself, as a scholar. You get a PhD, or you get a master's, you get a bachelor's, and then finally people are like, oh, like, well, then what you think about this thing is valid now. And so what has happened is the thing that I was doing, it was illicit, it was contraband whenever I didn't have the credentials. And so now I can write prescriptions, right? Like I become a doctor and I can write prescriptions. But the same thing that I am telling you is not different than the thing that I was telling you before I had those credentials. But it was illegal then. It was contraband then. It was wrong then. It wasn't verified then. And so when I'm talking about being dope, what I'm saying is there's a difference between the thing that you get over the counter and the thing that you get like from the alley behind the store. And I don't know necessarily if the thing, like it's the contents of the thing are really different. But when they trying to sell you that thing, even if it has the same chemical makeup and they're selling it over the CVS counter, folks like me who are like, that's not the thing that we be doing that came from my neighborhood. That is a thing, and it does seem to be like eerily close to the thing, but that's not the thing. Mm-hmm. And you have all of these universities, or you have all of these institutions, you have these cities, you have museums, whatever, like all of these places are pretending to be trap houses, while at the same time asking you, can I see your credentials so that you can sell it? And then they're like, oh, you don't have the credential, then you have to come to us. I don't have to, like, imagine me bringing a plate from my grandma's house and then somebody saying like, well, you can't sell plates here. And then they turn around and they trying to sell my grandma macaroni. And you got all of the ingredients, but that ain't my grandma macaroni. Sorry.
Period.
So so this is, and so being dope, I'm not just being cute. What I'm saying is that blackness has always existed in this country with this relationship to the state, or with this relationship to the country that says like, at once blackness is the most desirable thing. Like people are addicted to it. People abuse it. But blackness can only be sold, can only be distributed, can only be traded by these people who have credentials. And so like rather than thinking about hip hop, or rather than thinking about like hip hop's fascination with drug kingpins, say like Frank White or I guess Griselda or Nino Brown, we should be looking at this very American thing where the founders of this country were absolutely kingpins, and what they were selling was us. And so when blackness becomes the dope, then you see how it gets legislated or how it gets sanctioned in these ways that like it is only proper if you got those three letters behind your name. Because that's wild that somebody would say, well, but you do a different kind of music. And I'm like, I don't know if when I'm rapping, if folks at home recognize me rapping, that their recognition is because I got the PhD, especially if these people who've been listening to me since I was in 4th grade. It wasn't the PhD that did it. Now, the PhD might have did something to amplify it for folks or to make people understand, but I've been the AD with that blood in my veins all my life. And I decided to not put on a costume whenever I came into the classroom to pretend that I was some other kind of AD, some respectable kind of AD, some kind of AD that was seeking a different thing and then was going to like switch it up in the last moment. Nope. I am the same person who inherited what my grandma brought me through Paul Laurence Dunbar, right? Like I am the me that I've always been, and I've stopped pretending to be the me that folks would rather me be in order to be in the room. And so, yeah, and so when I say being dope, like this, that is not arrogance. That is not arrogance. That's theory. That's me saying that, like, we can actually look at this through history. Like, I mean, yeah, like this war on drugs. What was that? What was going on there? And how is it that we've gotten so compassionate about people who are on drugs? Like to say that, like, there's a war on drugs, but now we have care and compassion for, like, what is called an opioid crisis. Right? And I think that those distinctions are something that we should understand. Like, we should understand that crisis came also because of racism. Racism ain't just the thing that you do to black folks. It's a thing that is done to white folks as well. It's a thing that's done in the name of whiteness. And when it gets done in the name of whiteness with opioids, it's like, oh, like, because those black people are seeking drugs. That's drug-seeking behavior. And so you got a whole bunch of folks out here addicted to drugs because you was trying to keep black folks from doing this thing that you just assume that they do with drugs. That's wild. But that is some poetic justice for America and for Americans.
Real talk.
Yes,
Real
yes.
talk. Oh man. Man, I say you preach it to the choir. This is a lecture.
Yes, yes,
Like
yes.
I am so gracious and thankful because, again, like you were saying, and unpacking everything you talked about, starting in the classroom, I have to speak to students about this confirmation bias where you cannot just deny information just because it doesn't align with what you already know. You have to be open-minded. You have to have this want to understand and be understood. Like, we do this active listening exercise in my course where you have to listen. You have to comment on what somebody else has said. And we do have to debate and we do have to discuss on several different topics because, students walk in, whether they're traditional or non-traditional, they come in and, they know it all, of course, right? Or they know everything, and because you look like how you look, you don't know anything. And so that's another poise of my locks where I don't want to just be a black instructor. I want to be exactly who Melanie is. And don't tell me that you don't see color. Don't tell me that, oh, everybody is the same. Everybody has a specific domain, and we're going to respect all cultures during all months, not just Black History Month, not just during Hispanic Heritage Month. We're going to respect it throughout, every 365 days or 366, depending, because that's the reality of it. And being that unapologetic and not being aggressive about it, because people are quick to put that aggressive label when you're not saying you're sorry about being exactly who you are and giving the facts of the matter. So when you do bring up hip hop and this whole spectrum of how you are discussing hip hop in such an amazing, like, beautiful way, like I'm beyond just, I have a bunch of questions, but the questions, don't even seem enough because you have taken on this, the heart of what hip hop truly is, and you are making it not even palatable. Like, you don't even want for people to just say, okay, I read the chapter, did the assignment, now I'm a hip hop scholar. No, this is a lived in experience. This is a place for you to acknowledge what you know, what you don't know, and take the time to unravel that part of it, right? And I love the analogies that you're using to also get that, because that's what people need sometimes. They need the antidotes. They need, what do you mean I got to take off my shoes? No, take off your shoes. You know, take off those rose-colored glasses and put on these clear glasses so that you can see the reality of what it is. When you talked about the 80s, the Reagan era, and how it was an explicit way to bring black people down by bringing in crack and bringing that into those neighborhoods. And then you did have rappers like KRS-One. You did have Flavor Flav and was it Chuck D? Public Enemy. You had them to come in and to rap about those things and to showcase those things in the times. And, looking at hip hop also as journalism, being journalists of the time. And as I spoke with another guest, they were talking about how, attacking that and now making it more whitewashed, making it more corporate, making it more where, it's less aggressive, right? Less apologetic and more palatable for the people to be entertained by. And that takes away the purpose of what hip hop is. It's not even looking at it from an author's purpose. It is about the essence of the people and how they use the music to really portray and share that lived in experience, which is an experience that not everybody can truly understand. And so with those credentials okay, so yeah, you do have the PhD, you do have the master's, so it's okay coming from you, but from anybody else, oh, they're drug dealers, oh, they're prostitutes, oh, they're this, they're that, because you don't have that. But like I tell my students, I don't go everywhere with my degree on my shirt. I can't just walk around and say, this is who I am. I'm a college professor, and these are all of my degrees from all of these universities. It is imperative that people take the historical value of what hip hop has always been and to respect it such just as that, whether you feel good about it or not. And I remember reading an article by Ron Eglash. He is a professor at the University of Michigan, where he talked about how the neuroscience behind putting together the rap. So even the scientific studies, the way that the brain works whenever somebody is freestyling, this above human ability to be able to create and put these rhythms and rhymes together, especially when you're freestyling, writing as well. But that's something that happens even without the research. That's something that happens, a fish swimming doesn't need a scientific inquiry for somebody to see that a fish can damn swim. Yeah. Yet it does take that, though, you honoring hip hop by pursuing it and teaching it in a university level as you do, that does help the cause. But I do appreciate the fact that that's not the cause altogether. Just like, watching Brown Sugar or watching Empire, watching all these shows that talk about rap and hip hop, that's exactly what it is. No, it's just a caricature, just a little tidbit and an entertainment fiction story of what hip hop truly is. So with your work, you've had, I've seen the videos, like it's a song you have that gives the medication of taking a break. Rethink your boredom. Take a break, take the day off. So you are actively putting your theory into practice. Talk to us about that part too. I have the melody in my mind, but I'm thinking about a whole lot now. But I know you know what song I'm talking about because it's a lyrical video that goes with it too.
Yeah. It's called "Do Nothing." Yeah,
Do Nothing. That's right.
And yeah, like with that was like me writing myself a prescription. There are, I mean, the world is anti-black. The world is sexist, misogynistic. It is exclusionary, and it's doing all of those things. But we are not going to produce and achieve our way out of that. You know what I mean? Like, we are not going to excellence our way out of capitalism. And so, like I say, rest ain't a reward. It's something. It's actually something you need to give yourself in order to be. And so that was me talking to me, because, well, like, I be doing a lot. I have long days, and I'm always thinking, well, what's the next thing, and what's the next thing, and what's the next thing. So it's not incidental that song is on that album called Illicit. And the artwork looks like, it's kind of like a poison pill bottle, and then on the back it's a prescription pad. I'm literally talking about, like, that line where, where people believe that, like, it can only be real if it comes from somebody who has this particular credential. And so as a rapper who happens to have those things, or who has happened to study in these ways, sometimes I got to tell myself, chill out, man. Like, do less. You ain't got to go out here and, like, again, like, like, and prove that you are worthy of being in the room, or that you are worthy of being believed, and all of those kinds of things. Even though the world is going to continue to do that, because when I walk into a room, yeah, my degree ain't on my shirt. Or, and then sometimes even, I mean, I know I had somebody come to class this semester, and immediately the first thing they asked was like, "Are you the grad assistant?" I'm like, that's wild that that's the first question. And it's not because I don't have a grad assistant. It really is because, like, I'm wondering how we got to that, rather than like me being in front of the class doing whatever I'm doing and you not automatically assuming that I am the instructor.
Right.
But but I don't have time to figure out why that was the question that came to your mind. And actually, I'm not going to hold on to it to try to figure it out. I'm going to just keep it pushing. And so I was like, no, that's hilarious. And then I kept going. And then the person is like, "So what do you do?" And I'm kind of like, well, what I'm doing, that's what I do. And then there's this recognition like, oh, yeah, but I'm not about to answer absurd questions. What do you, nah, I'll do less. I'll do less and let you figure it out. So I think that, like, the way that the music, because now I'm constantly searching for the kinds of songs that I do make where I am now, and so what does a peer-reviewed rap album even sound like? What's the contents of it? What am I going to say on it? And so, like, this thing that I'm saying that is ancestral, this thing that I'm saying that is about my family, like, I'm thinking about not just my grandparents, but I'm thinking about my cousins, and my other family members who are living in a town like Decatur, Illinois, which is, one of the fastest shrinking towns in the country, that was unjustly overburdened by the war on drugs. And those are the conditions that created me. But me, like, being where I am now, like, might get exceptionalized because they're like, yeah, but given all of that, you achieved all of this. But, like, that achievement didn't pull my whole family over here to Charlottesville, to UVA with me. My family is still in that circumstance, and my family also lived through that circumstance. So the reality of that place is still going on right now. And so when I'm thinking about my job and, like, what local means, whether it's my house or it's my city, I'm also looking back at the house that I used to be in the city that I used to be in the state of disrepair, or the states of disrepair that is in, to be able to say that, like, everybody didn't get out of that house. Everybody hasn't left that house. Everybody wasn't fortunate enough to get a pathway out of that house. So now we got to talk about how faultily the foundation of that house was built, how the beams in that house are rotting, and the people who are responsible for making sure that that house stands upright are absolutely not doing that. It ain't the people who live in the house who are responsible for the construction of the house that is supposed to be protecting them. They're doing what they need to do in the house to, like, to make it a home. But, like, the house itself is unstable. It actually, like, the roof might fall on their heads. And what y'all are going to do if that roof falls in is say that it was their fault that the roof fell in on them. So my job is to say, but what happened in the 1980s when y'all was, like, actively chopping down the beams in the wall? Mm-hmm. What happened when y'all put a barricade through the front door? And now y'all talking about the door is unlocked, anybody can come in, everybody's walking through, or whatever. Y'all knocked the door down. So when I write I Used to Love to Dream, I'm like, well, my grandma, my family, like, their names need to be a part of this historical record. Because, again, like, you can look at the exceptional thing and then be like, there's this, like, this bright story, but also now I am dislocated from my own history. And what I want to do is bring that back. So it's not about me as a rapper. It's how, I mean, it's about my nephew who's a rapper, right? It's about my nephew who's come up and he's got that same inheritance, and that inheritance is somehow the thing that made the county police or made the city police put him in jail. He's locked up right now. I'm saying that's not a metaphor. He's locked up right now. And the conversations that I'm having with him, through the home app, is the same conversation that I'm having with those students, except that he knows the house.
Right.
He grew up in the house. And he knows that a whole lot of us who come out of that house end up in that place rather than this place. And so, like, my job is there as well, because whenever he gets out, he's going to be narrated as not only a rapper from Decatur, but like someone who also went to jail. right? And so and so it's really important that the things that I'm doing are not just about me or about like the like being an exception. It's about saying that exceptionalizing makes it more difficult for us to observe reality. That most hip hop artists don't have PhDs. Most hip hop artists don't have a number one record. Most hip hop artists don't make Billboard. Most hip hop artists probably don't even desire any of those things. Most of the hip hop artists I know, even now, the ones in my family included, use hip hop as a way to move minute to minute, hour to hour, day to day. Right? When my friend calls me up on the phone and his baby daughter is like, like, Daddy, can I tell Uncle AD how my day go in Iran? I'm thinking about me back in 4th grade, and this kid now, who's a baby, absolutely is picking up that exact same thing. I didn't even have to give it to her. Her daddy gave it to her. And now she's freestyle rapping her day. Does that kid know that she's hip hop? Does she know that that's hip hop? She just knows that that's the way that her and her daddy talk and how they recap the day. So those are the hip hop artists that I am far more interested in, who my work is in support of and speaking back to and reflecting. And that thing that's happening on Billboard, or that thing that's happening at whatever university, or that thing that's happening at whatever museum, it's cool, and we can talk about it. And like, I know plenty about that as well. But I want us to think about the everyday use. I want us to think about, when my cousin Devin is tragically murdered, and me and my brother don't have words to talk about it, that like eventually what comes through the text is an MP3, and my brother narrating those last few moments or the short life that we had together. That song, ain't nobody gonna hear that song but me. And the thing is, like, we didn't have the words to say it to each other, extemporaneously or in a conversation. But one of the things that we know that we can do is put that pen to the pad, or put our thumbs on those letters, and then write the thing and then record the thing. And that we don't have to talk no more about it. Like, it's like, yo, that's dope. Or I'm gonna put a verse on it. And still, putting the verse on it doesn't mean that we're gonna turn it into a commodity. That is us communicating.
Right.
Right. And so I think about the battle raps that me and my brothers did that made us better rappers. Ain't nobody ever gonna hear them. That wasn't the thing that Spotify is talking about, like the competitive sport. It's absolutely not that. It's an entirely different thing that is about how we communicate with one another, how we shape our identities and are shaped by the places that we, that bring us to those moments. Mm-hmm. And so when I'm talking to my family about hip hop, it's almost never about the commercial product. It's almost always about how we are as people with one another. It's almost always about the process and not the product. It's almost always about the ways that we come together, like how we share space with one another, rather than any particular place that we are going to or that we're at. And I just think that gets missed quite a bit. And so when folks come to class or when folks leave class, they're like, well, this was way different than what I expected. And it's like, that's strange, because you ain't never been to my house before. How could you have expected something? Like, what was it that you expected? And it's like, oh yeah, because it's not like the movies, or it's not like TikTok, or it's not like Instagram. And I'm like, oh yeah, it wasn't never that though. It wasn't never that. Yeah. So, and also if you examine the thing that you've gotten, like the corporate hands that are involved in all of those things, the histories of those record labels and the histories of the business of hip hop, the business of selling music, the business of copyright, the business of intellectual property, then what you will see is the same kind of racism that exists and persists everywhere else in the United States. It's important for us to know that. It's important for us to study that, because that gives us a way to see the thing that's happening everywhere else. I think that, like, hip hop fandom, rampant fandom, it might be like one of the best test cases for us to understand why people are so bad at understanding American history. is that like we are trying to make people understand our fandom of George Washington, our fandom of Thomas Jefferson, and that makes us uncritical because we want other people to be fans of Franklin and Washington and Jefferson when we should be critical of them.
Right.
When you listen to the new J. Cole album, I don't care that much whether you like it. What is he telling you? What is he giving you? What is he showing you? How is it instructive? What can you do with it? Now, if being entertained is the only thing that you want, say that and then say I wasn't entertained and now I'm not talking to you no more. Because that's your use value of this thing that I'm going to learn with, this thing that I'm going to teach with. Because I hear the multitude of flows. I hear the decades of study. I hear the number of references. I hear those drum tracks that sound eerily like those other songs. You know, like I hear the echoes. I hear that. And when you say to me that you're not interested in that, then I'm like, why do you even listen to rap? And then again, I realize that what you do with it, what hip hop means to you, is way different than what it means to me. And I can't make you want to be a student when you are committed to only being a fan. Mm-hmm. Fandom might lead you to study, but it is not a prerequisite for study. I didn't study F. Scott Fitzgerald in order to become a fan of The Great Gatsby. I studied that so I could understand how that man wrote that novel, or whoever wrote it, how that novel got written, and what the symbols mean, and what people are doing whenever they say the green light, or the yellow and blue car, or the beautiful shirts, or whatever it is that they're saying about it. It doesn't require that I love F. Scott Fitzgerald, or The Great Gatsby, or the Roaring Twenties. And it would be weird if my study required fandom. Most people who are arguing and talking about hip hop out here, like in their hip hop, in their engagement with hip hop, I just find that, not most, I just find that a lot of people are arguing their fandom. And I'm like, yeah, you can go discuss fandom with people, but that's not the basis of what I do. I don't need you to be a fan. I don't need you to be a fan of my house. I don't need you to be a fan of the people on the wall. I don't need you to be a fan of the ingredients that are in the cabinet. None of that is required for you to look at what goes on in my house, to observe what goes on in my house. Actually, it would be a whole lot better if you kept your quality judgments to yourself. Ain't nobody ask you. And so when I come to a classroom, I'm not asking you if you think I'm a good rapper. It's weird that you think that I would care about your opinion of the quality of my rapping.
Come on.
That's weird. Like I would never, I wouldn't take an insult from you. So why would I take a compliment from you? Oh, you're actually good at that. That's weird. The people who I care, whose opinion I care about with regard to my rapping are not in this room. They're not on this campus. They're not at this conference. So I'm not asking y'all whether y'all think I can rap. I knew I could rap when I came in the room. And for you to believe that it only becomes real once you say that I can do it, yeah, that is some mad egocentrism. Mm-hmm. Yeah, mm-hmm. Like don't let your ego get away from you. I do not care about your opinions. I am a scholar.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, you don't have got nothing to prove.
Yeah, no, we good. We good over here. You can tell us that, and I'm saying thank you so much. But it's like, don't act like I don't know how to take a compliment. I'm saying that compliment is that compliment ain't paying no bills, but it's also not like it's not landing in here. That's about you. That's not about me. You can have that back. You don't have to tell me that it's good. When somebody's like, well, if they didn't tell you it was good, how would you know? I'm like, I knew before I got here. I knew before I got here. I've been knowing that since the 4th grade. What makes you think that I came to this predominantly white institution for your validation, or for the validation of 13 and 14, 15-year-olds online, or for a TikTok audience? Nah, I'm cool. And also, I feel like, KRS-One or Tierra Whack or Love the Genius, they also don't care if you think they can rap. They know they can. And they do it. And so when you come telling me, I don't think that she's that good or whatever, and it's like, yeah, well, you know what? It would be interesting and maybe even relevant if you could say that to her and she heard you and then cared. But like you're saying that, like, what is that doing? I'm not even talking about whether I like them or not. The ones that I named, I do like actually, but like I'm not talking about I'm talking about the critical thing that we do with it. Imagine having a syllabus and then being like, okay, like the only thing that we're gonna do by the end of this semester is determine whether we like or dislike any of these books. Because that feels like you ain't learned nothing.
Right.
You went through a whole semester, you read a whole lot of words, and you ain't learned nothing. And so the archive of hip hop does not need you to like it in order for you to learn from it. History does not need you to like it for you to learn it. And the same thing, reality also don't need you to like it to learn from it. In fact, there are a whole lot of things in reality that you won't like, that you are going to have to learn from.
And to add to that, disliking it, you would actually learn more from it. People would learn more from the critique of it than the actual ambiance of accepting that compliment. So there's that part too. There's so much that you said that I want to just applaud you with, and to say that for my platform, I speak to real artists, right? To talk to artists about, the life and breadth of why they create hip hop. They're not on a billboard, and some of them, that's not even the goal. This is them being able to just express themselves and to do something in a positive way. And that's the absolute goal, right? I teach my students too, to add to what you were saying. My goal, especially as an English instructor, when we think about literacy and putting together your ideas and sharing it out, my focal point is to teach students that the applause is extra. That's just something extra. You are so committed. You have done your research. You have your evidential support. You have proven your thesis. You have included your counter argument, all those nuances of argumentation, and that you aren't proving anything to anyone because you've done it for self. And it starts with self first, and all of that in a very, basic way, right? In a writing class. But exactly like you're saying, it's not for what Jay-Z said. Are you fools listening to music, or do you just skim through it? Are you just waiting for the beat to drop? Are you listening for bass? Are you actually listening to what is being said? And do you understand what's being said? Are you actively trying to understand what's being said? And more times out of not, no. People are more whitewashed and corporate type listening to it to put those numbers up rather than being changed by the music. I also wanted to add to what you were saying earlier, very apologetic about your nephew. And unfortunately, instead of him being a rapper that, is that has been released, that adjective is gonna be a modifier that says an incarcerated rapper. Like, he will always have that on him, unfortunately. And that's what happens to us, especially, is that it's going to be this but type of titles. Like, yeah, this is a professor, not a professor who has a PhD that is also from Decatur, Illinois, or from Shreveport, Louisiana. This is a Black professor. This is someone who, I want to modify this so that you understand that, they were, DEI'd into the program, or it was given to them. And no, this was earned. No matter if it's a HBCU, a PWI, no, I earned this shit. And you have to respect my intellect. And when it comes to presenting that information, and you do just that, I just really want to give you the flowers to say that not only are you lecturing that, you're also putting the work in to create that and showcase that, where you're not just teaching about the music, you are creating music that puts that theory into practice and showcases just that. So you're practicing exactly what you preach. And that's my goal, is to try to put that into curriculum so that to teach others to do the same. A long time ago, early 2000s, I was a fourth grade writing teacher, and I was in a neighborhood in my hometown of Shreveport, Louisiana, and one of my students, big family, and their oldest brother was gunned down. He was murdered. And so I had this after school program called Freestyle Friday, where students would write rap music, and I would use beats to teach them to write. And it was a writing, assignment. But I'll never forgot, a young boy named Renunian, his lyric was, "I can smell his food fine, I done wipe the tears away," because his big brother used to cook for him. And he ended up misspelling the word tears to spell it as TILS. And so in that manner is where, the literacy came in, the grammar mechanics of being able to express yourself and write and spell correctly. But that was his opportunity to actually express to him what exactly happened. He missed his brother. He misses his brother. His brother was unfortunately gunned down in the same rudimentary manner that a lot of other people that have succumbed to that in our hometown. But I just remember that and many other instances where it gave students that opportunity to foster that instinct, right? That hip hop instinct to want to write and to create instead of pushing it back. Because for me, hip hop is exactly like you said, it's always been of me. But attending PWIs, even at a young age, to have to ride the bus for an hour and a half out my neighborhood because we were so called smart and going to these magnet schools and it just being stuffed away. Like that's not something that is here, but I wonder what life would have been for it to have been fostered for myself. Yet at the same token, I don't have to like it. It's something that I've learned through, pushed through, and still will be the Superman of that Clark Kent era that they tried to put me in. And that is, the standpoint and exactly what you're saying where, the compliments, thanks, put it in a box, put it in some monetary way of doing so if you want to. But that standalone ability to have that confidence to put together words, expressions, feelings, life lessons into rhythm, into a way that you understand, that your ancestors have understood, that people like myself can understand and attune to and learn from. That's the absolute overarching goal, is to be able to teach others through the lens and perspective of hip hop, all of those dynamics of belonging, period. Not to be liked, not to win competitions, not for pageantry, but in that essence of building of self and unlearning the idea that you have to be able to gain an audience, gain followers, and have subscribers and have this hundreds of thousands of TikTok people. None of that matters. But social media has people gaslit and thinking that that's what matters when in essence, it never did. It never will. And that's the overarching goal. So yes, sir. Amen. Agreed, sustained, all of that. Yes, sir.
No, yeah, I appreciate that, and it's also like because those things are currency. They are a currency. Like they are versions of currency. It's just that those aren't the things that I value, and so I'm not collecting them. And so then when you see me not collecting them, you're like, you're doing this wrong, and I'm like, no, I'm doing it the way I want to. I'm doing it absolutely correctly. And you're wrong if you think the way that it is being done is the only way to do it, because that is a way that people do it. It's just not the only way. The other thing I want to say about the way that like the modifiers, how they work, with my nephew and with like lots of folks from Decatur to Shreveport, is that like I also write about rap washing, the way that like the word like when people use the descriptor. Like when they describe a person as a rapper, and you see it doing all of this wild work in headlines. So, a young man in California gets killed. Police see him in a parking lot. It's 2:00 at night, or it's or 2:00 in the morning. He's asleep in the car. The police wake him up. They shoot at him something like 60 times. They kill him, and then the headlines say rapper killed in police shooting. Now it's weird that that's what the headline says. But it's not the only time that happens. It happens so often where rap is used to make the case in advance for a terrible thing that has happened to us, or to make the case that like an institution that hates us now loves us. So think about the Super Bowl in the NFL using a hip hop halftime show, and it's just like they're washing their whole reputation in rap. Or to think about like the United States, like the State Department and their hip hop ambassadors. What does the United States is the United States making the case that America is the greatest country in the world because of hip hop now? Given its history with hip hop and black folks, is that the case that we're making? And so I think that's another thing that is not. That's not necessarily the thing that I'm saying to my family. That's something that the students need to learn. When you see a headline and you see the word rapper in it, I want you to try to decipher what's going on in that headline. Because a lot of times, especially when rap ain't got nothing to do with what happened, rap ain't got nothing to do with the thing, and it's doing a whole lot of ideological work. And it's depending on your negative feelings about what rappers are and what rappers do, or who rappers are and what we do in the world, like what our role is. And in the same way, you know, if something happens to me, I write about being pulled over by police. My first year teaching here, this is Virginia, and thinking immediately, there's students in the car with me because we're coming from a conference. What would happen, like if something bad happens with this officer, everything is going to depend on how they describe me. If they describe me as a Virginia rapper or a rapper who moved to Virginia and something happened, then people will be like, what did that rapper do to make police hurt him? Mm-hmm. If they say UVA professor, you know, is hurt by the police or something happens, then they're like, why did the police do that to that professor? Now, I'm not, you know, like either a professor or a rapper, but the way that folks narrate me, depending on the modifier that they use, is going to change that whole story before it even becomes a thing. It's going to change the possibility of the story. So we kind of have to understand that as well, not just for me, because like I am in a position that like professor or rapper are the choices. But like in my nephew's case, the modifiers, well, we know what they're going to be, and people are going to try to naturalize him and say that he's a rapper and that he was locked up and that he's from Decatur and, you know, all of those things. And so that young man is not even given a chance. Not even given a chance before he's narrated as the problem. And that, I think, is the issue, is that we have to make sure that folks don't use these understandings, these really limited understandings that people have about what we are, who we are, what we do, and then use them to continue to do harm to us. Because that's really what it is. I mean, you know, I don't think that it's intellectually harder to understand, you know, like what a novelist does or what a photographer does or what a nurse does or what a doctor does any differently than it is to understand what a rapper does, right? But we know that we know that it, you know, like that when we show up, when I'm on the airplane and somebody's like, well, what do you do? And I'm like, oh, I'm a rapper. They're like, oh, well, interesting. Well, what do you do with that? I'm like, rap. I make music. Oh, well, where, you know, like, how do you make a living? I teach. Oh, where do you teach at? And it's like, this is a whole lot of questions. I mean, like this also, you know, but also I don't be answering people's questions like that. Like, I mean, I don't really like engage in small talk in that way. But I'm saying that when those things do happen, I think it's important that like I'm situated as a rapper. Yes, I work at that university. Yes, I have a professorship. Yes, there are like all of these other things, but I am here not because I happen to be a rapper. I am here because of rap. Rap is the thing that got me here. Rap is my living. Hip hop is how I live in the world. It's not incidental. I don't so happen to be a rapper. And that's a difference. You know, like that it's not a vocation. It's my life now. It is my occupation, but it is also my life. And if I stop working at that university, I'm not going to stop being a rapper. I'm not going to stop being a hip hop artist. I'm not going to stop being the artist that I am. And so no matter what job I go to next, if I go to another job, I'ma still be an artist. I'ma still be a rapper. I'ma still be that kid from Decatur who is in this particular position wherever I am in the world. And that, I think, is important to be reminded of, again, for all of the folks who are like, when they tell you they rap, your first thought is like, well, what are you going to do with that? I'm going to live. I'm going to eat. I'm going to feed my family. I mean, there are a whole lot of things that I'm going to do with it. But like, this is also not contingent upon what I can do with it. That's how I got here. You know, like that's what brought me here. That's the vehicle that I came in on. So if the question is like, what are you going to do with it? I'm like, well, like maybe that's what I did do with it. That's how I got here. And if I got here, I can get elsewhere. There are other places to go. Like, this ain't the final destination. Also, again, weird that you think that like this, that this is the climax of my story, that this is the apex. Yeah. No, we ain't done yet. We got plenty to do. There's a whole lot of work that hip hop will continue to do. Whether I'm a part of it or not, it's a whole lot more work that hip hop is doing and will do in the world than those folks who have limited notions about what it is and who's doing it and why we're doing it.
That's right.
Yes, yes.
When you were speaking, it brought me that Chief Rock and Lords of the Underground lyric. They don't understand how I feel about the funk. I eat with the funk. I live for the funk. I die for the funk.
Yep.
Like, that's you. Like, that's straight up, like, period. Like, that's exactly what it is and what it has to be. You was, is, and will always be that rapper that raps, period. Nobody asks about accounting. Like, well, what are you going to do with accounting? You already know. You already assume. You already have that. But to question further with inquiry, not with curiosity, but just with inquiry and wanting to know and try to find fault, that speaks more about the person answering the questions than ever the person that they're asking the questions to. And when I would like to definitely take another opportunity to speak with you. If this could be like a part one, Dr. Carson, AD, like, I appreciate the lecture. I appreciate the convo, the rapport, more importantly, the knowledge that you have imparted to the audience as well as to myself. You have affirmed a lot of things of what I've been thinking, and a lot of the literature that I've been reading as well, and incorporating your text. The next time we talk, I will have gotten your books, because I want to have that same non-negotiable, which I feel I have now, but that's that non-negotiable stance on what it is when it comes to hip hop. This archive that I am building is that digital humanity where people should be able to come and to cite these sources of intellect, of people that are in the field actually performing hip hop, creating hip hop for hip hop's sake, nothing more, nothing less than. And to give that domain. But this is, it's not enough time to speak with you and to really unpack what I really want to discuss. And I just thank you for your time today, and blessing the platform today for sure.
No, thank you so much, and I look forward to the next conversation. This can absolutely be ongoing. I'm with it.
Cool, man. This is Melanie, the hip hop scholar, Dr. A.D. Carson, the rapper, the historian, the most relevant brother when it comes to the study of hip hop. Thanking you so much for your time. Hip Hop Scholar family, check out the link, check out the books. Everything is linked here at the bottom. And with that, we are out of here. Peace.